could tap into some of that. I leave you with these thoughts as we prepare to think deeper about commitment. The practice of contentment and simplicity in our own lives will go a long way towards blessing the church. You know, this is not as hard a piece to preach as it might have been in previous years. When we find ourselves making decisions about the way we spend our time and our money because we're not in such an economic crunch. Now that we are, we're all having to make some of those choices and tighten our belts somewhat. But you know what, folks, when the economy turns somewhat, we don't know how much it's going to turn, but when it turns, are we going to forget what we learned? And are we going to be able to say yes or no to our children and to our grandchildren and to our teenagers? And this is why. Because I want to teach you sound financial principles, and this is why I'm saying no. Those are the kinds of things we have to be willing to do and be content, finding new ways to live, simpler ways to live, not for the sake of doing it, but so more of our time and our resources can be available to bless others. Friends, teach your children this early. It's much harder to learn later in life. You do them no favors by giving them everything they want. How will they ever learn to rely on the blessings of God if you provide their every need? John Wesley was one of the most content with material possessions that I've known. Now, he struggled with his faith along the way, struggled with assurance of his salvation, but when he got that straight, a lot of other things took off. I did this a couple years ago, and it's worth doing again, to remind us of the kind of faithful man that John Wesley was. If there's a lesson in this for you as we prepare for a time of commitment, I encourage you, get out your pens and pencils. You may want to take notes because these numbers are going to be interesting to you. John Wesley knew about giving himself completely to God's service. He learned what it meant to be content. His father was a clergyman, and he decided, because his father at one point got thrown in debtor's prison and couldn't pay off his debt, John decided, well, I'm not going to be that kind of preacher. I'm going to be a professor too along with that. So when he first started making his money, he made quite a bit of money. He wasn't as generous with it in the beginning, but somewhere along the way, around 1731, like many of us, some type of life-changing events occurred for him, and he began a practice of giving things away. He writes about his first 4 years of giving history, and it's worth looking at again this year for the third time to make a point. In the first year that he was employed by the church and by the school, his income was 30 pounds. If you're writing this down in numbers, Dennis, I got online and did my conversion. I hope it's right. 30 pounds in today's market would be about $50. Does that sound right? He wasn't even listening. 30 pounds would be about $50. Don't laugh at that. Okay, thank you. His living expenses were 28 pounds, $46.51 were his living expenses. He gave away 2 pounds, $3.32. In the second year of his ministry, his income doubled. 60 pounds, around $100. His living expenses were 28 pounds, $46.51. He gave away that year 32 pounds, $53. By the time we get to year 3, his income keeps rising. He's at 90 pounds, or about $150. His living expenses were what? 28 pounds, $46.51, and he gave away that year $103. His year 4 income was 120 pounds, $199.35. His living expenses were 28 pounds, $46.51, and he gave away 92 pounds, $153. Well, you see the pattern. As his yearly income rose, his living expenses did what? Stay the same. And he gave away more and more. It's been said that in his lifetime, if I can find my sheet, it's probably the most important and I can't find it. John Wesley at one point was tithing about 98% of his income. Oh, I wish I could find that sheet because it's so telling, and it's not going to be. If I could find it while we're sharing our commitment time, I'll share it with you. But the point is, the more this man gave, the more he made, the more he gave away. That's it. That's it. Bring that one up here. It's a good thing I made a second copy. I think it's worth hearing. Thank you. Probably still on the copy machine. Well, I don't think I'm going to find it. Here we go. This practice of giving away his money began at Oxford College, and it continued throughout his life. In the year that Wesley earned today's equivalent of $1.4 million, he lived on 2% of his income and gave 98% of it away. During his lifetime, by today's standards, he earned the equivalent of some $30 million by today's standards. He reports that he never had more than 100 pounds at a time, which would be about $166. And he said he would consider himself a thief and robber if he died with more than 10 pounds to his name, which is about $16. When he died, he left a few miscellaneous coins and some silver spoons that he had left instructions should be sold so that the poor may have food. And that's exactly what was done. Wesley lived by the Spanish proverb that he never even knew. There are no pockets in a shroud. Friends, as we come to a time of commitment, I'm going to ask our ushers to pass out both a service commitment sheet and a financial commitment. If you are a guest, please do not feel pressured in any way. This is just a way for us as a church family to make some estimates of what we think we might be able to do for the church in the year to come, both of our service and of our financial commitment. We remember that everything that we have is a gift from God and that we are merely stewards of that. The call for us is to be faithful managers of everything that belongs to God anyway.